pioneering a bunch of amazing stuff within the space, teaches at NYU. Runs around, so I'll leave it to her to introduce herself. I think that's definitely going to be a part of the talk. And bring your slides up over here. You want to start?
Yeah,
Guys?
no, I'll sort of do a combination of the two.
Yeah, I have this right here, so you can just snatch it.
Perfect. Okay. Hi, everyone. You ready? Okay. So, we were talking yesterday, and I sort of said, you know what? I love all these technologies. I love sort of the future of technology. Innovation. One of the things I really like doing is helping people to understand what the technologies are, so that they can make business decisions, whether it be about their own sort of careers, or whether it be sort of a CEO or a head of department about like how do we use these technologies. So, but usually where you have to start is just understanding what they are, having sort of a common language. But let's see, first, so this is what I'm going to do really quickly. I'm going to talk about me for 2 seconds, then we'll go into definitions, and then when I'm on the panel, I'll go into some of the predictions that I have as for my section. So about me, there I am, yay. It's like 5, 6 years old picture. I need a new one, probably the one that you're gonna have later. Founder Pitch Forward, and I just joined the World Economic Forum Future of the Metaverse Council too. And my company, we focus on innovation, emerging tech, branding, marketing, business strategy. The thing related to talking about this or trying to explain it, I'm also an adjunct professor at NYU. I taught this semester business in the metaverse class. I taught it at avatars and virtual beings, marketing, emerging tech. Metaverse came out in February, and it was an entire year's worth of work. Just trying to explain it, cover over 20 different industry applications, have over 60 contributors throughout the South. Okay, metaverse technologies. First, definition, which is really, really hard. There's a lot of people who debate about it. Mine is, my particular perspective tends to be a bit on the flexible end of the definition. So for me, it's the metaverse is a culmination of a wide variety of emerging technologies, all maturing simultaneously. Which, if you get, if you're on, LinkedIn at all, and there's like another announcement about a new technology, another announcement about a new application, you can feel that this is happening, that everything is shifting and changing. The way that I interpret when I talk about the metaverse is that this idea of a new interactive dimension. That's how I tend to define it. So that changes, some people would think that a sort of a 2D virtual game is the metaverse, and I'd probably debate with them about whether that's true or not true, or how that's true. But that's how I interpret it. Okay, so this is going to be impossible. I'm not going to be able to do 10 different technologies in under 10 minutes, but I will try. So the idea here, the goal here is that then when you start hearing it, people are throwing around terminology, probably the people in the room who know all of this, and it's like, oh, I already know this, and that's fine. But there might be other people in the room who are going, you know what, I sort of know that, I'm not so sure, I don't know, but at least you'll have a sense or understanding of sort of like vaguely where things, what they're trying to say. And in my classes at NYU, most of my students are actually media studies students, so they're not coders and developers. They are just trying to see how and where these technologies are going to apply to them. And when it comes to this sort of shift in technology that's happening now, and it's still yet to come, everybody needs to understand these technologies. So it's just like you use the internet now. Do you know exactly how it's created? Which ways it's created? Maybe not. I mean, there are definitely people here who do, but those who are making business decisions don't necessarily have to know exactly how every single little detail is
lost the feed.
The prediction.
Lost.
Feed.
I have no idea what to do about that. Do we have the guy from IT?
Okay. Well, I'll try to do it anyways, without it'll be even more expressive. Just because I want to keep us sort of on time while we figure it out. Imagine beautiful pictures, right? Full screen beautiful pictures. So the first one, the one that I tend to start out with, and it's not a surprise because my picture that I've had from a long time ago with a very old, outdated virtual reality headset on top of my head is VR. And so I would bet that probably everybody in here knows what virtual reality is, but for me, the way that I tend to define it is I'm like, it creates a virtual world where you have agency. So it's basically, you put on the headset and you are transported somewhere else. Now, there's even debate within VR industry about what is VR versus not VR, but to me, it's like, if you can move around, if you feel like you're there, if it's not just sort of the equivalent of a TV on your head that you can look around, but instead you can move around, that's virtual reality, okay? And so sometimes people will be like, the metaverse is virtual reality. Well, virtual reality is part of the metaverse. It is not all of the metaverse, but that's VR. The next one that I have on my list, again, second beautiful picture, we will all use our imagination, is augmented reality. This is when it overlays the real world with graphics and video. So you can see the real world, but there's things on top of it that you can interact with. There's debates within it also of calling certain things mixed reality. There's so many debates in technology, it's ridiculous. I consider mixed reality to be augmented reality. That's me. So, because it's easy enough that if you hear the term mixed reality, you're like, oh no, another technology, another R I have to learn about. Don't worry about it. Try to think of it as augmented reality where you're wearing a headset and you're going to be good to understand enough about it. The next term, beautiful picture again, of Roblox, which I really do like Roblox, but it's what I call a virtual world. So put an online game with a massive number of players, and I use that term massive on purpose. But basically, if I'm talking about something where it would even be, let's say, Sandbox or Decentraland or Roblox or Fortnite or whatever, I just call it a virtual world. To separate it in my mind from the metaverse, that interactive dimensional experience. Okay, we're getting really quick, right? Artificial intelligence. Just going to explain it all in a half a sentence. Computer programming mimicking human intelligence. You think about it as that, is that we're just, like, even if you've played around or seen any of the things with ChatGPT, if you've seen all the image generation that's coming out recently for the generative AI, if there's chatbots or virtual humans, which we'll talk about, like, it's really just trying to copy how humans think and create and make and do. I am going to try, I was talking to Jake back there, like, I was like, how can I encapsulate that even further? But for now, let's go with that. So another term that you might hear over and over again, and this one I actually really like using that, is digital twin. So a digital twin you'll hear over and over again. Usually the best way to think about it is if you were creating a copy of a manufacturing floor and you want to use it to make decisions about what to do on that manufacturing floor, you can run a simulation of it, because technically a digital twin is that sort of simulation and ideally a real-time simulation of that. Also, like, thinking of it as if there's an oil rig and you need to do training, or you need to figure out what's going to happen at that oil rig in the middle of the ocean. To have a digital twin where you can sort of figure out and make decisions on it is going to help you. A version of it that I like, that's sort of the next advancement of it, is there's going to be medical digital twins of all of us in the future, that we can make and predict our own bodies and what's going to happen. That I find extremely fascinating. But digital twins in general, especially if people are like, oh, the metaverse isn't going to happen because there's all the backlash, usually they haven't heard about or understand what a digital twin is. And once they do, then they go, oh, well, I guess I can see that could help apply. Internet of Things, another thing you might have heard of. Basically the way that I have the beautiful kitchen set up picture, right? Lots of graphics and AR graphics on top. Clearly you can all see that. That's the way our life will be, right? When we wear our AR glasses, that we'll all be able to see the graphics, but there'll be nothing there. Objects independently connected by software and sensors. So I like to think of the kitchen is used often over and over again, but basically it's when your refrigerator can tell you that you need milk while you're in the grocery store, that kind of, you know, or that you need some information, and it's gonna, you know, the sensors are going to help you to identify what is going on more than what you can normally see. So that again, that's sort of related and connected to this metaverse sort of digital interactive world. Avatars. Okay, another term. And I like to separate avatars from virtual humans. I talk about my class. Avatars to me is any time where you have a version of yourself, a digital version of yourself. So if you're gaming and you're like, I'm gonna create my avatar, and there's one of me coming, that it is based on you yourself, your data, your information, whereas a virtual human or a virtual being is an autonomous or semi-autonomous person, animal, and thing. It is something that is built upon AI, and it can be, or built with, there's lights. Okay. It's the Internet of Things now. I'm joking. Okay. So there's a lot. I feel like there's more and more of these kinds of beings that are being created, because especially, you can think of it as almost like ChatGPT. If you play around with it, that you feel like it's talking back to you, right? So when it comes to me, the autonomous or semi-autonomous person would be like if you put a graphic of a person and have that ChatGPT talk back to you. I feel like we're like 2 seconds away from that happening. One question I asked is sort of like a theoretical question of like, if you could have a conversation with Google. So instead of going, how am I gonna Google that? How would I Google that? I don't know. But instead you have this sort of back and conversation. Oh, well, I'm looking for this information. I'm not sure. What do you think? And you have that back and forth. To me, that you're gonna have a conversation with a virtual being. So the other thing that people don't always talk about, but is related also, is cloud computing. See, we have lots of technology all at once to get super overwhelmed from everybody. So large on-demand remote network to store, manage, and process data. Does that make sense? It's basically all the information, because we're gonna have so much information, so much data, that it all needs to be handled and processed sort of like separately than directly on our own computers. If you want to invest in stock, I would probably invest in cloud computing because it's gonna get more expensive and bigger. And then 6G, which is related to, so not only 5G, which right now is sort of out there pushed by the different telecoms as like the future of technology is 5G, it's actually 6G, which is coming, which will be much more real time, which will enable all this to happen. So even if the people will say the metaverse is here now, no, it is not. The metaverse will be here once we get 6G and more powerful cloud computing, and everything is connected. That's 10. So when I'm up there, I will give some of the predictions, but hopefully at least it gives you enough of a understanding groundwork of like when people start throwing out acronyms, as tech people tend to do, or throwing out terminology that you're like, okay, that's what Sam said, maybe you understand enough. And if you don't understand it completely, I am here happy to help figure it out, because in order to make decisions, in order to make business decisions, you have to understand what it is you're talking about. So thanks, and I will be back.
Thanks, Sam. I think that was amazing, and just blazing through those 10 was so important for all of us to get a hang of where we are right now. I'm now going to invite Gabo on stage, but I think we'll need the projection up before that.
I won't go out without it.
So yeah, I think let's take 5. If anyone has any questions for I don't know, should we maybe move things around a little bit and just let's just do something that doesn't leave the screen. Yeah, you need slides as well, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
See if I can.
Yeah. You want to just see. Just gonna try and get back up. Just a moment. Hey, Jan, thanks so much. So next we're going to have Gabo up, Gabo Aurora. He's one of our advisors in Geometry as well. He's doing some amazing work within the realm of immersive realities. He's the founder of ISET, is that how you pronounce it? Immersive Storytelling and Emerging Technologies Group. He founded that at Hopkins, so he's been doing some amazing work. Currently he runs Lightshed, which is his way of coming here and talking about and contributing into the fields of education. There's a project that he's going to talk about later that is very close to my heart, doing some amazing work. He's an ex-UN diplomat as well. So yeah, I think we all have tons to learn from Gabo. I'm going to bring up a video that Gabo needed. So there we go. Is that good?
Yeah.
You need a link as well.
And then, yeah, I can go.
There you go. Hey, Gabo, come on in.
Thanks so much for going here.
Really.
Yeah, at some point I can go into one of these things. Oh, I'm on the camera as well. Okay, so great to be here. Beautiful view. It's one of my favorite new luxury buildings, actually. So a little bit about me. I worked for the UN for a number of years, and probably most well known for a VR documentary, many consider the first kind of documentary in VR, called Clouds Over Sidra. I made it in 2015 about the Syrian refugee crisis. Clouds Over Sidra really was my attempt at the UN, for the UN to be less boring, for the UN to not just rely on reports, because it has a very limited way it gets people to care about its issues. And so the hypothesis was, if we can use technologies like virtual reality, will people, if they're transported to a place, if they can see eye to eye with people, if they can have dinner in a refugee camp, if they can see what the schools are like, but actually be there and be transported there, will they change? Will we care more? So Clouds Over Sidra launched in 2015, and then UNICEF started using it for face-to-face fundraising, and they started doing A/B testing of stopping people in the street without virtual reality and seeing if they wanted to give to the Syrian refugee cause, and then giving them a 2-minute version of the movie I made, and giving them the ability to understand what it's like to be there, and then asking them for a donation. And consistently, across 40 different countries in 15 different languages, it doubles donations. And that led to an NGO arms race. Because we have an AI arms race now. But that led to a lot of nonprofits, a lot of NGOs, a lot of multilateral institutions starting to look to virtual reality as more than just gaming or entertainment, that there was something a bit deeper going on. And so that's been a lot of my work that I did at the UN, and then I've continued as technologies evolve to use multiplayer, virtual reality, mixed, everything that Samantha was telling you about. I've been trying to use to see how we can use it to build empathy, social connection, and how we can kind of care about the world a little bit more. But what it does, and what I think is fascinating, is that a lot of these technologies, if artists, creatives, humanitarians, different people start using them, then all of a sudden the use cases, their whole perspective for what this technology can do shifts. You know, you don't see it in a way that's very black or white. You see it in a more nuanced way, that there is some use cases. I will say the media is bad in general, like for reporting on technology. I think it does a lot of sensationalism. I think it does a lot of harm, but that's just the world we live in. There's no way to change that. So I want to just share, because enough of my talking, that was a little background. I just want to share a project that uses AI and the Metaverse, because that's why we're here, right? And basically, this was a project that I did with Accenture Song, that is a corporate place. And the idea was, the brief was very quick of, you know, what can we do with this new technology that could be interesting, that could merge with the Metaverse in some ways. Where is my cup? Is my Starbucks cup back there? Sorry. You have to bring it to me. Yes. Sorry. Sorry about that. It's not, you're not bringing me coffee, you're not my intern. It's a joke. It could be my intern because he is very young. But he's actually my boss, because he runs the platform of the next thing we'll talk about. So the idea was, and you'll see the video, and you can all go on the URL on your phone. It's a phone-based sort of experience. This is not my phone, so it's your phone. And the URL, I don't know how to tap that, but we'll go there in a second. Maybe I can do it here. You have to do it on your mobile, because it's an 8th wall experience. I don't know what happens with that. Yeah, okay. So you'll see that as you type it in. Where is this? Where was I here? Uh-oh, no, got rid of it somehow? Bring it up. Yeah.
Too many times.
Okay. No, I need my video. Yes, there we go. Perfect. Okay, so I'll do a little in-app sort of demonstration so you'll see how it works. But the idea was to do it for a coffee company. It could be Starbucks. It works with Starbucks sort of logo here. And really, the idea was when you order a cup of coffee, that you have maybe 5 minutes, 4 minutes before that coffee comes in a coffee cup. I know people have an app. I know people pick it up. I know all that stuff. Let's imagine this is still a normal life where you're going into a coffee shop and you're ordering. You gotta give me a little break. I'm doing the best I can here with this technology. So you order it. I'd like a cappuccino. Thank you. Okay. Now I'm just waiting, right? And the idea is I'm on this phone while I'm waiting for this coffee, and then I have certain interactions. And so that's kind of the setup, that when you get your coffee, that's when the experience goes up. So I'll play the video so you can understand a little bit about what I'm talking about here. So we did this just at a conference to show how it would be. That's a made-up coffee company right now. And the app is We Feel. So you start. It is best experienced with headphones. You'll enter, yada yada. You do have to agree because there's legal things like contracts. Let's see. I'm just going to talk over it. So the idea is that while you're waiting to have some connection, share states of mind, community, that you can kind of connect with yourself and other people around you. And the idea is that you want to share some of your feelings with this app. It'll ask you some questions, and then it'll create some poetry for you. And that poetry part was very interesting because we had to train it. And I'll talk a little bit about that. Before you start, a little bit of a reflective moment where you breathe, do a little breathing exercise so you get into the right sort of state of mind. And here you go. That's the first question. So the first question you're going to have is, how would you describe your mood right now? And what's interesting is you can type it in, or you can see what others around you have been putting there. So you can either click on that if some of it vibes with you, or you can share it. And the reason we put that in is because if you don't put something like that in, no one's going to share. You know, there's a communal feeling, you know, of having other people there. So there's 3 questions. The second one was, what would make today a good day? And the third one is, what are you grateful for? So you put that in. To personalize it, you put in your name. And you can all try this with this cup. You're going to need that, or you can ask a friend to put up a Starbucks logo and see how that would work. We then send it up into GPT-3, and I'll talk a little bit about that training. And we worked with 8th Wall to create an AR poem. So this is when it scans it, and when you're ready. And it'll take all those inputs and try to create an inspirational poem for you to start the day. A little cheesy, you know, but we're trying to do something cool. But what's interesting is generative, so each one for every person will be different. Now, this is just a proof of concept, and there's a lot of copyright issues, right? We used Robert Frost, because Robert Frost is in the Creative Commons, and he is the, like, best possibility of using language that we could understand today that's concise and interesting. If you go too early, then it uses very old words, you know, that might not work. But ideally, what we want to do is work with Instagram poets, like Ruby Kaur, you know, or Amanda Gorman, right? And imagine working with them to train the AI. And I've done these experiments, but we can't do it for copyright issues. It brings up other legal issues. But if we did a campaign, we worked with them, we compensated them, then all of a sudden this could be a way that they have worked with an AI poet and can release new poetry, or allow someone to have poetry based on their own style. There's a million different ways we can work with this creativity, and then in the coffee shop you could buy their poetry. There's a lot of other things in that way. So that was just one enterprise case that I wanted to share of where AI can merge with the metaverse, in this case augmented reality. And you can try it and let us know how you feel, and we're hoping that sometime this year we do it with a big brand, with a real budget, but this is just like a short proof of concept of how AI can make us more reflective, more human, give us a chance to kind of, you know, not just use it as a servant, but use it to help us understand ourselves better and maybe get inspired by how we're feeling. So that's what it is. Thank you.
Thanks so much for that case study. I would love to have that poem with my coffee mug, especially this morning. It's been a stressful day. And having my coffee mug tell me it's all going to be okay would be very helpful. And interesting at the same time. It's my pleasure. Thanks so much, Gabo. Gabo's going to be moderating the panel with us, so I request you to just take a seat at the panel as people join us. It's my pleasure now to welcome Janosch, or Jan, as we know him better. He's an award-winning entrepreneur. He runs Beam.io, and with that, he works with digital humans for communication. I think Beam's amazing, doing some amazing work, so really glad to have him with us. And yes, round of applause for Jan, please.
I'm Jan. I'm the founder of B, but I grew up very non-technical. I grew up in a small town called Byron Bay in Australia. If anyone's ever been to Australia, they'll know Byron Bay as being a surfing hippie town with great coffee, although it was that about 15 years ago when I left. Now it's the most expensive real estate in Australia, thanks to Matt Damon, Zac Efron, Chris Hemsworth, and his brother Liam. I don't like it. So I grew up on a hippie commune because my parents were counterculture Swiss hippies who emigrated from Europe to Australia to find a better life. I had solar power, rainwater, and a micro farm with a veggie garden, fruit orchards, chickens, and the bane of my existence, a cow. My parents, being Swiss, didn't trust the local dairy industry, so they imported their own Swiss brown cow that I had to milk before going to school, which meant no morning TV. But it's okay. My television was on a 12-volt power system, so it was black and white, the size of an iPhone screen. And I literally had to get square eyes because I was watching it a foot away from the screen. The Simpsons for me growing up were grayscale. Now, I thought my childhood was a very disadvantaged one, although looking back in retrospect, having Utopia, being called Mushroom Drink Boy 35 years before kombucha was cool, was actually a blessing. And my tech sparse childhood enabled me to become very good at one thing. And this is a thing that all close-knit or tight-knit communities have, is very tight-knit and very intimate communication. So me growing up around 40 families on a forest block, kind of like an Israeli kibbutz, enabled me to have 15 brothers and sisters, although I didn't have to share bedrooms or share even dinner tables. And when I left and moved back to Switzerland, despite my parents becoming a commodities trader, or as my parents would call me, a global agent of destruction, I realized that the rest of the world wasn't very good at communication because we all hide behind technology. And technology is not very good either. And so after 10 years disappointing my family as much as I could by destroying the environment and fueling our global consumption, I found my own business to try and solve the problem of digital communication. Now, over thousands and thousands of years, we've always had different types of communication. I'm going to jump to the slides in a second. Different types of communication where we've used technology to solve the communication of a distance problem, starting off with things like cave paintings. Then we had marathon runners, which kind of pushed the world into this competitive sports and Olympiads. And we had carrier pigeons when we became lazy. But then Morse code became a very interesting technology to fuel things like the British Empire and enable the expansion of single societies over large distances. And then about 140 years ago, we used a new technology which was groundbreaking, the telephone. The ability for us to be able to put intimacy in our communication over distance. It's no longer words and dots on paper. It's now my grandmother's voice when she would call me for my birthday, all the way from Switzerland. And that's how I got to know my distant family, was when they would call me on my birthday, assume I would speak Swiss German, and assume I would understand what they were telling me. I would just say, yeah, everything's good, I'm 4 years old now. And so that was this groundbreaking technology. We've had it for a long time, but we still use it on our phones today. And then video conferencing, this amazing gold standard tech that we use now, that's being used on various laptops around this room to live stream this talk, came into existence in 1968. AT&T started to play around with televisions, video cameras, and telephones to create this amazing technology that we all latched onto during the pandemic. However, we're still a far cry away with our technological solutions to replacing what all of us in this room are doing right now, and that is presence. We're still not good enough as a society to be able to transfer emotion, trust, and credibility through our digital communications methods to prevent you guys all from coming into my SAP office here with WhatsApp and Gmetric, because we're craving that emotional and psychological connection. So 5 years ago, before Metaverse hype, before pandemic made Metaverse interesting, I started to build a company called Beam. Put together a crack team of engineers and an incredible team over here in the US on the front end of it to create the next evolution of communication. And it's got nothing to do with tech. Everyone thinks you need to evolve technologically to be successful. That's not true. We built Beam due to its psychological premise. The inevitability that we would psychologically want to be as credible and as efficient in communication over distance as we are in person. So forget the bells and whistles of the metaverse, AR, VR, AI, machine learning. All we wanted to do was replicate what we do psychologically in person, but use technology. So what we created is basically the love child of the Star Wars Jedi Council, however, much higher definition, and WhatsApp. We built a cross-platform calling system that utilizes things like AI, machine learning, AR, VR, XR, MR, and everything else to simply transport a real human from one location to someone else's space digitally to create that same psychological sense of presence, and thus creating more trust, credibility, and intimacy over distance. The next evolution of computing is augmented reality. This is what companies like Apple, Qualcomm, Meta, Microsoft, Snap, and a bunch of other companies who are slightly lagging in the race have their bets hedged on. Apple, so much so that in 2.5 weeks is most likely going to announce their new headset. And they have been shitting on the Metaverse for the past 2.5 months in the press. The Metaverse is dead, says Business Insider and Bloomberg. However, it seems to be a bit of a smear campaign from Apple to make sure that the palette is clean when they launch their future of computing device without much of a mention of the Metaverse, AR, or VR. We've partnered up with Apple's competitors, most of them actually, to create the core feature for all augmented reality glasses, and by default virtual reality as well. Think FaceTime, but a real human being transporting themselves digitally into your space. And we're also compatible with Apple by default. Here's an example of usage with glasses in a medical scenario. We were talking before about the patient-doctor experience and how to do that over something more intimate than Zoom video. So here is an example. Most AR glasses will be tethered to a phone or wirelessly connected for the next 3 or 4 years while the phone still maintains its dominance as the device of the consumer. And so we can leverage the phone's processing power to transport a human conversation digitally into each other's spaces. For our distribution, we're working with SAP, obviously. Thank you, SAP, for hosting us in this beautiful space, but also a number of other partners to become the communications tool of the future. And we've also partnered with various academic institutions, and I'd love to talk to New York as well, for various scenarios around education, training, and in the case of places like Yale, using it to beam parents of children who are going through cancer treatment into the hospital wards when they're in isolation, creating that intimacy and that closeness of the family members for children who can't see their family for months on end. And this is more of a business-geared slide. We work with multiple people, including the military, to deploy our tech. Utsav said something very important before, and he said that today is a showcase of what's possible now. The interesting thing is, for the layman, often AR, VR, Metaverse technology does seem like a game or a gimmick, or just a simple experience that you are excited about for a moment and then you forget. But there have been billions and billions poured into this industry from the large tech companies companies and utility companies to create the infrastructure and the piping for the way we'll compute for years and years to come. And a lot of that is already ready. And we will see over the second half of this year that it is ready. And we'll jump into the press more and more, especially after Apple fires their starting guns in 2.5 weeks and the rest of the ecosystem tries to catch up. Thank you so much for your time. I hope I could instill some hope in the future of tech and the usage of the future of tech, specifically in communication. I'm Jan, connect with me on LinkedIn, or have a chat to me after this. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Ian. I mean, it's always amazing having you here, hearing about the amazing work Ian is doing. Isn't that cool? I think you should catch a few of their demos. They're really cool. I think you'll, beam a few of those later. Next up, I'm going to have Alex. Alex is, like me, an architect by training, and he calls himself an ex-architect, which is really amazing. He runs Agile Lens, which is a really cool New York-based creative XR studio. And I mean, if you talk about his clients, he's worked with everyone, with big games, Intel, Samsung, NVIDIA, HTC, just to name a few. So, well, I'm going to leave it to you to come in and talk about some of the amazing work you're doing. And yes, let's welcome Alex.
Thank you. Yeah, just it's okay. You know, let's go. No presentation.
Are you okay?
We'll get people focused on what I'm saying. Hi, everyone. And oh yeah, even with the Zoom call, although I feel like that's more distracting to see just the Zoom call. Let me go ahead and just minimize this. I kind of want, let's pull up. Thinking of a good image to throw up here.
I think you might have.
Oh yeah. Oh, hello. Whoops. Sorry. I'm just trying to minimize it. That's fine too. We can set the black screen. Yeah. If it comes back up. Tech. All right. Cool. So yeah, there's a few things I could talk about, but I don't want to take up too much of your time. So I think maybe in service of a couple case studies, maybe 4 Seasons at Lake Austin might be an interesting one. But yes, as Uthaf mentioned, my background is as an architect. When I first came to New York City in 2010, I was working for Raphael Vignoli, doing some pretty crazy projects around the world. But I've also always had a passion for theater. And so when I started to use virtual reality in 2013 with the Oculus Rift TK1, I'd already been doing augmented reality, marker-based stuff in architecture school. I was very eager to find a way to also work in theater. So my basic progression over the past 10 years has been using virtual reality to create real buildings, using virtual reality to pre-visualize shows that will happen on stage in Broadway and Lincoln Center and the Park Avenue Armory and beyond. And then eventually around 2016, 2017, we started to become very interested in digital twins, although we didn't call them that at the time, and essentially thinking how we could make things entirely virtual and still compelling. And that went both for, and I guess I should do this for Zoom. I always want to be like, hi everyone. But we started to do experiences and projects that were intended to entirely be virtual. And these were things that were related to virtual architecture and thinking about architectural design and what rules would translate to virtual spaces that might be different or the same as the real world, and then also virtual experiences. So for example, we do a production of Christmas Carol every December, and this production of Christmas Carol happens both out of physical space and virtually, and you can see it in a web browser, you can pixel streaming, you can see it on a YouTube live stream, or you can put on a VR headset and connect to a powerful remote computer and then get like the full, Unreal Engine fidelity version of that experience. So what's been kind of interesting in recent discussions, especially with the thoughts of what the future might look like, but again, talking about what's happening now, is that we do see more of an interest now in, even our clients who aren't saying the metaverse, they are wondering, how do we attract people to buildings, to experiences, to things that are very unique to the capabilities of emerging tech. And especially with the luxury markets we've been involved with lately, we do see this craving from, let's say, high net worth individuals to have a novel experience, to have something that is very different, that they can go brag about to their friends. So this project in Lake Austin, which has had a slew of celebrities coming by, none of which I'm at liberty to speak about, even though there are some great stories that maybe you can find me afterwards and I can tell you a couple. There is this holodeck that we've constructed to showcase Four Seasons private residences in Lake Austin. And this holodeck is, of course, very clearly named to evoke the Star Trek experience, but it's also to attract people as kind of a destination VR location. This is an 80-foot by 65-foot space, purpose-built in a party tent, interestingly enough, to allow people to walk around these properties in the most photorealistic way possible. And so it's serving a few different use cases, because on the one hand, our client here really wants people to know exactly what this thing will look like when it's built in a few years. And they're trying to convince people to lay down millions of dollars for something that has barely begun construction. And it's the job of our virtual reality experience to do that. So that's one aspect of what's happening. It's just like, standard pre-selling real estate using VR. And my company, AgileLens, has been doing that since 2015. So on its surface, there's nothing that special about that, except we are using like crazy ray tracing, and the size of the space allows people to not deal with like teleportation and artificial locomotion. They can literally just walk around the entire space and feel it. And it is definitely the most photorealistic VR experience we've ever worked on. But then there's another side to this, and that goes more into digital twins. And most of these are just discussions right now, but the interest level is there to say like, okay, what happens if someone buys one of these properties and they want to be able to host someone virtually? What's the format of that take? Is it an Unreal Engine file? Is it something that lives in Decentraland or VRChat? What's the actual method for claiming ownership? Is it NFTs or something else in the blockchain? And then how do you start to do things like update it? If someone, we've had these discussions about if someone starts to populate their physical space after they buy this with real furniture, what's the straightest line toward also having that update in the virtual space? And similarly, what if they want their virtual version of the space to do things that are only possible in the digital medium? What if they want to remove the ceiling? All those basic things that in the metaverse you don't need to worry about physics and weather and all those kinds of things. We get those kinds of basic questions all the time. How could they customize the virtual version of the space to make more sense in that context? AI I want to touch briefly on, because these are also just some interesting discussions. We did a project recently for Waldorf Astoria, Miami, and as part of that, it was an interesting combination of our work in architecture and theater, because we actually hired the actor who we have who plays Scrooge every year in Christmas Carol. His name is Ari Tar, and we had him performing as a Waldorf Astoria concierge, or a host, so to speak, using a mocap suit, the same mocap suit he uses for our theater shows, but now he needed to take on this role that felt much more in line with something like Neil Stephenson's book Diamond Age, which came out a couple years after Snow Crash, where the term Metaverse was coined. And in that book, there's these discussions of ractors and ractives. And the idea was basically that the virtual world that people would start to spend more time in, you wouldn't just have actors for major events and shows. You'd have actors in there performing like everyday functions. Any kind of job you see someone doing in the real world, there'd be some kind of digital equivalent for that. So Ractor stood for interactive actor, and Ractive was an interactive narrative. And it was very interesting to see the reaction we got to Ari performing the role of a concierge at Waldorf Astoria, but in a virtual space. And so AI comes in when the discussion starts to be more about like NPCs. And some of us have seen these demos of things like Skyrim, but you can go around in Skyrim and talk to every character, and they can tell you their whole philosophy on life and what it was like growing up in their particular segment of the world. And so with the possibilities of AI getting to that point, the enterprise cases of this now are becoming kind of interesting. And I don't think we're there yet, but we can definitely see that level where what we traditionally think of as video game NPCs can have enterprise use cases. We could have a concierge that actually knows the entire script, the entire handbook of how to behave at a Waldorf Astoria institution, and can represent the company well in that context. And it goes far beyond what we see with a standard customer service chatbot. So anyways, just want to kind of set the stage a little bit for some of the things we're interested in and working in now. We've been doing a lot of very interesting work where there are shows that need to have a physical component and a virtual component at the same time. We did the Orchard off Broadway last year at the Vershenkov Arts Center, not far away, with Mikhail Vershenkov and Jessica Hecht. And that was an interesting show that I'll just mention briefly because we needed to have signals that could send both to the virtual version of the show and the physical version of the show at the same time. So as we start to think about, you know, the metaverse and AI and all these things working together, I think it's important to always keep in mind the real world as well. And what is happening in the real world? Are you at your home on your couch in your pajamas, or are there still reasons to go someplace, to go to a destination in order to have a virtual experience? And when we start to have something that's a little more hybrid and blends those worlds a little bit, that's fascinating. So being on the side of like constructing tools and custom setups that are very much intended to allow, say, an operator of a show to click one button and have that trigger things in the virtual world and the real world, sometimes tailored to those different audiences. Yeah, it's been cool to be at the bleeding edge of some of this stuff, and I'm happy to talk more about it. But I'll leave you with that for now, and thanks very much for your time.
Thanks, Alex. Great having you, and great to see some of the work Lance is putting in. Amazing stuff. Next up, we were supposed to have Sid Bhattacharya, but he couldn't make it in person, so he sent a video instead. So I'm just gonna have the video that talks about a little bit of his work. I hope you guys can see it. And yeah, just bring that up. Just a minute, I think. No.
Hello everyone. I thank Geometry team and Utsav for inviting me to share my insights on the convergence of AI and the metaverse. My name is Sid Bhattacharya and I lead the demo engineering teams at SAP SuccessFactors. I'm also passionate about innovation and on the Web3 and AI front. Today, let's dive deeper into a topic of immense significance, the future of work. One of the prominent trends in the corporate landscape is the adoption of hybrid work arrangements. Over 70% of companies already plan to implement these arrangements, enabling their employees to collaborate on-site and remotely from home. According to a recent Gartner study, we are witnessing a world where everyday objects are becoming more innovative and virtual environments like the metaverse are evolving into something that is very contextually aware. So we'll see a flow from all the way from on the left-hand side from the physical world to the right-hand side on the extreme on the purely virtual world and everything in between, including things like augmented reality and virtual reality. Some stats to keep in mind. In the next 3 years, in 2026, 1/4 of the world's population will spend an hour a day in the metaverse. That's a massive number and an opportunity for us to capitalize on. We already have 400 million active users on the platform, across all metaverse platforms in 2022. And by next year, the market size is expected to grow by 800 million. So these stats go to prove that the future is here now, and it's something that we should all embrace. If you think about the metaverse as this collective virtual shared space, converging physical reality, augmented reality, and the internet, you will notice that there are several platforms and gaming metaverses that are already in play. Games like Roblox, Fortnite, and others. The demographic of people who are already using the metaverse experiences through games or other channels are really 50%, over 50% are 13 years or under, and over 80% are under 18 years of age. What this really means is, for us and for all of us who are working to create these experiences, these will be your customers in the next 5 to 7 years. So if you're a company, or if you're a startup, or if you are someone who's looking to build something out, you should think in those horizons, next 5 to 10 years. Because people who are playing games in these experiences are used to virtual first experiences. Some of us who are used to the physical world of doing things may not find it that comfortable. But if you look at the demographic of people who are changing, very soon people are getting familiarized with working through virtual reality headsets or doing some mixed reality things through different hardware devices as well as browser-based interfaces. There are industries like retail, entertainment and media, and manufacturing that are already ahead of the game. You may have heard of a lot of people attending concerts in the metaverse. There are retail stores which have created virtual bags and selling them. There are lands that you can buy in the metaverse. So there are a lot of industries and who are becoming the trailblazers. And opportunity is for us to understand how do we make the best use of this opportunity for us. Soon you will have a virtual home office, a virtual home, a digital twin version of your dog, all existing in the metaverse. As people are playing games, building retail stores, and attending concerts, digital humans represented by AI avatars are revolutionizing how humans and machines interact. Hence the convergence of AI and metaverse. Here's another example. A lot of companies are experimenting with recruiting in the metaverse, where you can have virtual job fairs, career centers, office tours, and interviews done completely virtual and all in a virtual environment.
Has everybody come in who was supposed to come?
Let's take you on a journey of how we created an experience along with geometry to spice up our HR suite. So I'm part of the Success Factors HR pre-sales function. And imagine a scenario that you are a newbie joining a company. And as a newcomer, you have to use the HR system, you have to do onboarding and learning in the first 1 week. So you have to learn about the products, get up to speed on the company, and even navigate how some of these mind-bending metaverse experiences will make hybrid work a lot more real in the future. As a part of that experience, we integrated the solution with SuccessFactors. So we can launch the new learning content, and all of a sudden, as a new hire, you are transferred to this fantasy world where you have an AI avatar who's a representation of your manager. He's a smart AI avatar, so he has your enterprise knowledge base. You can ask lots of questions. He guides you. So as I'm doing my onboarding or learning, I have the option to first understand exactly how the metaverse works. So it tells me about what the company is doing on this front. How does the HR processes connect with metaverse and the future of work? And once I'm done with the learning part, I'm presented with a quiz. This one is an easy one, so all it's doing is it's reinforcing the learning that we did in the first row. So a quick and easy way for people to navigate and guide. In the second room, because I'm new to the company, it's telling me more about the different company products that are offered. S/4HANA Cloud, which is the finance product, BTP, which is a development platform. And of course, we have the SuccessFactors Nifty mobile app that all new employees will use to request for leaves and do other employee self-services. We also have a second game here. It's a Squid Game-like interface where it's asking you about whatever you've learned in room 2. If you pass the game, then it will take you to the next level. And here is where we are bringing in some immersive and gamification aspects of the solution to make it a lot more fun and interactive for new hires. There are 4 other rooms that you can do, and once I'm done, I can just go in and collect a virtual trophy. And that's where it goes back to the SuccessFactors systems and logs the process completely. Just to do a quick recap of what we saw, we saw that the smart world of onboarding and learning in a virtual environment like Metaverse is a lot more real now, and we saw a demonstration of that actually working. It is connected to an enterprise HR system, and that is important because now companies can start using this kind of experience and start rolling them out to their employees. It brings in AI bots as digital twins. So we talked about the convergence of AI and Metaverse, so now you finally have the ability to have these smart AI agents and bots that know everything about HR policy, they know everything about how to navigate through help desk tickets and all of that. And it could be a digital twin of your manager, so the person can coach you, guide you, and do various types of use cases that were never possible before. So it records all the activities and sends it back to the learning system. So that's another kind of validation that it gets stored in the system of record. And then any of the virtual trophies that you collect or any of the coins that are collected in the metaverse itself are stored securely in a Web3 wallet. So this is where we mix in newer concepts like Web3 wallets along with existing things like enterprise systems. So as you saw, the future of work is a smarter world that is shaped by AI, that is bringing forward a lot of these transformative opportunities and making it much easier for companies to hire, retain, and train employees. With that, thank you all for your attention, and I wish you an excellent remainder of the event.
So that was it, talking about some of the work we did with SAP, and I think it's the way we've been able to tie that into the enterprise systems and solutions where geometry is now available in the SAP store. So it's really easy for anybody to pick up and integrate, and I think that's been one of the major wins we achieved with SAP on this. It's my pleasure now to introduce Courtney. Courtney Harding is, she runs Friends with Holograms, which is just an amazing company. She helps translate companies from Web 2 to Web 3, and there's some amazing work she's going to talk about. Without further ado, round of applause for Courtney, please.
Hi. So I just realized I forgot to send you my deck, but I have it here. If you want me to share it with you, I can pull it up. Sorry.
If you need me to bring it up, I can.
Yeah, it's on my phone, so hang on. Just put your email in. Sorry, 1 second. I'll try not to be too boring. Nothing worse than like somebody's talking about a really amazing topic, like future focused, and it's like, hello, my 4th grade book report is on Johnny Tremaine. Johnny Tremaine was a soldier. Was Johnny Tremaine a soldier? I guess Johnny Tremaine was a soldier. I don't know. I'm just doing stand up at this point. But well, in deck. Sorry, I can.
Do you do stand up?
You know.
I was gonna say you should.
Yeah, you don't. You trust me. I'm not funny. Well, yay. Okay. Thank you. Sorry, I completely spaced on setting up. Okay. So this is going to be a very quick version of a talk that I gave at the University of Michigan last month. So this is, I'm going to start my timer too so I don't go crazy. So this is basically kind of like anti-capitalist sort of metaverse AI stuff. So it's a little weird, but we're going to dive in. I'll be quick as I can, and obviously you can come find me afterwards if you find this interesting. So I was kind of thinking about next steps for the metaverse and AI, and I was like, fundamentally, I feel like I'm kind of lazy. As much as I really love what I do and I'm excited about what I do, I would also rather be like trail running or hiking or hanging out with my dog or fly fishing or doing anything else. So I was like, all right, how can I take all the parts of my job that I don't really like, keep the parts of my job that I do really like, and then spend my time doing the things that I enjoy and use technology to do that. So what I kind of came up with is how can I use what I call small language models to power my avatars, and you can see these are some of my avatars, to, again, do the work for me. So I'll give you an example, right? I talk a lot, and you can find a lot of my talking on YouTube, on the internet. I like write a bunch, I have books, I have social posts, I have tons of content out there, right? This is the thing when you start a company, people are like, make content, generate content, tons of content, right? So I'm like frantically beavering away at content, but the thing is like, look, this stuff just all sits on YouTube, right? I'm not Mr. Beast, I don't have a zillion followers in a town and a McDonald's meal or whatever that guy has. So all this stuff is just kind of sitting there, right? And I'm like, okay, what if I can actually make this stuff work for me? So here's kind of a quick view of where we are currently. Avatars exist, duh. If you didn't know that avatars existed at a metaverse event, sorry. And they can be programmed as chatbots. This is not new. We've seen chatbots everywhere, right? You go to banks, customer service. Chatbots are not an uncommon thing. Now there's a lot of these DIY chatbot platforms, but they all kind of require some level of scripting. And then you get into large language models. Now, Gabo raised some of these issues in his awesome talk, but I'll just reiterate. So LLMs, they scrape a ton of data, right? So that's useful for answering big questions. That's useful for like, write a poem about my dog in the style of Shakespeare, fun. But that doesn't really work for powering these individual experiences. So right now, avatars that are not programmed as chatbots, they need to be self-directed. So if you see my avatar in Horizon Worlds or Spatial or whatever platform I'm in, that's actually me. I'm actually talking. So right now, having an avatar in the metaverse is a net increase to your amount of work, right? And it can be fun work. I enjoy spending time in the metaverse as an avatar, talking to people, but it's still work, right? So right now it's a net increase. So here's the future vision. An avatar that is programmed with my entire digital history that can go into the metaverse on its own and converse with others, right? Now, someone has actually done a version of this, except because it's the internet, right? Guess what vertical this is in? Just guess. It's, yep, virtual girlfriend. So, you know, you can have like, I don't know, I read that in the New York Times. No, but see, like, somebody's doing the girlfriend experience, except it is based on their content, right, their YouTube videos that they have made, and they're selling it through OnlyFans, which is awesome. Like, everyone's a consenting adult, it rules, this woman's getting rich, more power to her. So again, people are starting to do this, but this is kind of taking that example and putting it into a business situation, right? So everything that I've written, thought about, talked about on these topics, my avatar can be powered with that. Okay, so like why? Why would I do this? Well, look, Huck Finn, again, another great book report from the 4th grade. Huck Finn is blah, blah, blah. I won't do that. So Huck Finn, right, got these other kids to paint a fence for him. So he was like, painting this fence, it's so much fun. Oh my gosh, I'll have the best time. Sold these kids in, right? It's like if you have kids, you get them to play the cleaning up game, or the like eat your broccoli game. So I don't have kids, so I don't know how well that works. But regardless, like, he convinces these other kids to do his work while he hangs out under the tree. Gets the thumbs up, like Donald Trump. So that's clearly exploitative, right? That's no bueno. You do not exploit young children to paint a fence. However, because this is your own small language model, you are consenting to this, right? So there's not copyright issues like Gabo has explored, like a lot of musicians and artists have talked about. There's no issues of copyright. This is all your work. So you can exploit your work however you want it, which that's what's great about it. So eventually we're gonna spend more of our time in the metaverse. We're gonna do everything from working to consuming to networking. And a lot of this can be automated so that we can then go fishing or go do whatever it is we want. So we can really use this automation for good. Now, this is a line of Trader Joe's for all you New Yorkers. No one actually likes this, right? This is terrible. This is like a failure of planning and a failure of making something useful. So you can actually have your avatar do stuff for you. Your avatar can take all this body of information and do your shopping, and then someone delivers it to you. You don't even have to think about it. It's not like right now if you go on Instacart, you have to think, you have to click, and then some Instacart guy's like, hey, there's no peaches. Are mangoes a substitute? No, they're not, dude. But you get my point, right? So this is like a great way to automate all the things in your life that you don't want to do so that you can focus on the things you do want to do and, more importantly, the things you're good at. Again, skip the small talk, right? Networking is terrible. Oh my God. You get approached by hustlers and scam artists and you spend your time being like, oh, wow, you do lead gen? Wow, lead gen. Oh my God. No offense to anyone who does do lead gen, but seriously, stop emailing me on LinkedIn. Ugh. Okay, but you're pre-programmed. I would heard like, wow, lead gen, that's fascinating. Click. Wow, lead gen, click. Oh, hey, you actually want to build a VR experience? And you got a budget. Oh, click, click, click. Then, we get the humans get connected IRL. We can make something cool happen. But all of these like, oh, lead gen, click, got, right? And at the lead gen spammer side, they can find people who are interested, which I guess exist. So, it's really a way to sort of outsource all of this busy work and all the work that you don't want to do. And then finally, with emotional labor, right, how many of you ever worked at like a coffee shop, retail, waitressing, right? I did all those things. I was really bad at it because I was like, wow, you want a frappuccino with 6 shots? That's really good for you. Great. I'm not gonna give you my phone number. Give me my, right? Not good at it. Somebody just cut my
Probably a lead gen.
Yeah, some guy insulted a Starbucks because of his stupid order. Cut my mic. But anyway, so like doing this in the metaverse, your avatar can be as happy and smiley as you want it to be, right? And you don't need to actually have somebody put put in that effort, that can all be pre-programmed. So, in conclusion, this is the sort of weirdly anti-capitalist future for this, even though we are still working. You don't need to work all the time, right? We don't need to work all the time. We can use this technology for good to outsource a lot of the stuff with our consent, because it's our material that these language models are being trained on, and we can, like, I don't know, sit in a hammock. That sounds really nice. Beautiful day out. So this is, again, a very abbreviated version of the Michigan talk. I've raced through this. I'm happy to talk more afterwards, but thank you so much, and on to the next. And don't order stupid drinks at Starbucks. People like this, but thank you. All right.
When's your tech stand up? When's your stand up? When's your tech stand up?
Isn't Courtney such a powerhouse? That's amazing. Another round of applause for her. Bravo. I think it's also important to have a quick follow up to that. So, I run Geometry, and Geometry is essentially this platform that will allow you, without writing a single line of code, to do what Courtney just spoke about. And we have an interactive session, not just, I think, 20 minutes away, where all of you will be able to build a virtual view, enabled by AI, without writing a single line of code if you follow along. So you're going to all be able to do that in roughly 20 minutes from now. So yeah, looking forward to that, but before we get there, I think let's have the entire panel up. Cabo, he's going to be moderating. Everyone who already spoke, if you can come up. I know we're running a little late, but we're going to take just 10 minutes. And then we're going to head into a break as well. So for all of you who are really tired, just 10 minutes and then we head into a break. Samantha, Alex, Jan, Courtney, please. Yeah, I think most of them do, except the one that Courtney's using.
You turn it on. Yeah, turn it on.
Okay, great. Go right here. We have 10 minutes. Let's not drag on. Really good presentations. It was really cool. Why don't we just open it up to questions? Because I'm sure there's some burning questions for any of the panelists. Yes, right here.
Yeah, hi. I love the presentation that you gave and the stand-up as well. I love the idea that you could build an LLM into doing the networking work for you, doing this content work for you, all that content that you're posting. But as humans, we actually grow every day, right? We are learning new things, and that is improving whatever we're putting out as well, and we change our opinions. How are you building that in the LLM models, and how do you actually keep growing just like the humans so that you get the most authentic self out there, and they are doing it?
So, I think you would just keep training the model, right? So LLMs are not, or in my case, small language models are not static. They are ever growing. So yeah, you just keep feeding more content into the machine. Now, that is part of the deal, is you have to keep producing the content. But as long as you keep feeding the beast, I guess, then yeah, that's how it'll grow. And so you're kind of constantly training it.
Okay, so probably the LM model could probably read up on our behalf something that we want to learn and actually be fed so that they could put better content out there as well.
Well, so the idea with what I talk about, which is different from LLMs, is which are constantly being trained because there's so much new stuff being released every day. So this is just your material, right? So you're feeding everything you've done into this, and so then it's gonna the quality of your avatar based on the small language model is based entirely on the quality of your work. So it's not gonna take anyone else's work. So if I read an article by somebody that I think is interesting, it's unethical of me to feed that in as my own work, right? I can write a response to it, I can write something about why I think it is interesting and feed that in, but I can't plagiarize. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, but honestly, I would like to have some understanding over how much could you put in the structured information and how much effort is that? Because the ROI of what you are getting out of that model should be better than what you put in, as an effort inside in the model. You're training that model every day, so that should be a lesser effort than what you're getting as an output outside.
Right, well the model sort of trains itself. So basically you put in, you direct the model to your information, to what you put out there, and then the model just kind of goes, right? The model takes that and the model gets, as you feed more information into it, the model gets better. So it's not, I mean, again, like this is more theoretical than something I'm actually like physically hands-on building right now. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a way to sort of have it be pretty automated where, you know, everything you put out, you know, goes to all of your sites and then also goes into your model.
Yeah.
Any further questions from the panelists? Thoughts, comments? Yes, right here.
I need to give you a mic because the
Yeah.
people on the live stream.
Oh, right.
can I just take that?
Yeah, testing one too. I've been on those Trader Joe lines and the line ones, by the way, those social breakdowns. So speaking of commerce, I'm in like the e-commerce space as well, it's business development. How do you see, maybe you can share how the Metaverse and AI is looking to better engage and streamline the shopping experience, as well from like a retail standpoint. I know like the Web3 perspective, Lacoste has done like a lot of being able to engage with their customers and create like, you know, fun shopping experiences. So I just wanted to, if you guys could share or just projections of where it's going.
There's a ton of work being done in the retail space. I mean, for me, what I'm most excited about is actually how it can augment the physical retail. The idea that you could sort of walk into a retail location and you get sort of automatic customer service to your own needs and wants. That you won't have to say, oh, is that in stock? But in fact, have that sort of virtual being be able to tell you that it is. Because even if people like the death of retail and moving, right, people still like to actually feel the goods. And I think one company that, I'm not saying anything that if anybody follows retail is surprised by, but what Nike does is just amazing in terms of being able to connect physical and digital in new and interesting ways. But I think it's just the beginning. I think that having a lot of retail locations in virtual worlds, to me, it's no wonder there's a bit of a backlash to that, because it doesn't feel like it's not sort of pushing it forward. You don't sort of go there and like, oh, I'm gonna try this on and then you leave. Yeah, some of it is interesting if it connects it back, if it offers something new and different, if it brings in that sort of element of, like it pushes beyond like sort of a one-time activation into an actual sort of retail model. But that's where I would, I guess it's two things, twofold. As one, it's like how can augmented reality and interconnecting sort of digital humans enhance a physical retail environment, and how can you connect between that sort of physical and digital in more and more ways. Both of those, I think, are that sort of future of what's coming next when it comes to retail and Metaverse and AI.
It's not perfect right now, but there's a lot with AI where you can describe it, your living room, and you can just say, my living room is like this, and it will give a 3D picture now. There are experiences that will give you a 3D picture of what you think it thinks your living room is like. Not 100% accurate, but then you could say, now take this and give me 50s vintage, style, and it will do that. And then it's not hard to connect that to real things from Shopify or figure out who is a part of that game. So those things exist now. They don't work 100% perfectly, but you can see where it can go, where it can help you reimagine your own space. And I think Geometry has Shopify integration, and there's a lot that even within the platform, I think, can start to happen because people can start to do it. One other thing with anything with retail and data and everything is you have to think about blockchain in some ways of how it's going to come into play. I really recommend everyone to check out the Open Wallet sort of project with the Linux Foundation, because a lot of it is about you having trust in your data as you kind of customize an LLM or if you allow a company to do certain things. But with Universal Wallet, with blockchain, there's more trust in theory of how it would work. So I think that's something to keep in mind as you kind of play with all these different things that are kind of converging together.
No, it's great. Actually, just one more
Yeah,
question.
sure.
Beyond actually, and other applications of gaming, I know live shopping is getting really popular. In China, it's been paramount, and now we're trying to see it here. Do you think that that's another application, or maybe you've already been doing that, something into those worlds?
So if you ask a 15, 25-year-old where being would be best, often women will say it's where I can see every single look in my wardrobe using Being, and I can switch around, and then go to porn. But in terms of these all these kind of metaverse technologies and where Being can be useful, there's like a blanket statement that I like to talk about, and that is the difference between utility and experience. And when we come to shopping and e-commerce, there's a really interesting intersection there. And that is, most brands will try and surprise, delight, create affiliation with the brand. And that's often the objective, and a lot of customers will think that's what they want. But mostly, we as humans are just lazy. And what we want is something more effective, more efficient. In terms of going to the physical store, I want to know that this thing fits, and I don't want to have to send it back. Even in the post, it's tedious because I work. And so, looking at the real utility technologies that are powering ecosystems, and you mentioned blockchain. Blockchain isn't here because it's cool. Blockchain is here because it's much more efficient, and the whole ecosystem is being built up, with a lot of fluff. There's lots of fluff of experiences, and oh my God, did you see what that company did? And you ask them next week where that experience still is, and it's gone. So the ecosystem is being built up with a lot of fluff, but underneath all that fluff, there's these incredible utility technologies. Things like geometry. I'm not banging geometry's drum too much here because everyone else is, but it's a real utility technology. And the things that will stick are the things that just make life easy for us.
Agreed.
Was there a question in the back?
Sorry, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Kumar. This is a prediction question. We work on an AI solution for mental well-being score. So we're part of another incubation program. Every time we run a model looking for data, we run into a lot of legal issues. Oh, that's too private to run on an individual if you're trying to crawl on someone or monitoring their social media activities or their inclination toward sexual orientation, any of those things. So where do you see AI is going to draw a line, or when are those what do you call it? Regulations are going to be clear. Any thought process on that?
I think we're figuring it out now. With in writing the book, my co-author is based in Portugal, and so he gave me a lot of more information about what the EU is doing, and in comparison to how the US operates, and we tried to make it a very much a global perspective. I think that there was something today that even said OpenAI wants regulation for AI. So I think it's all being determined as we speak, which is a little weird because usually I think with emerging technologies, it tends to be much more of the innovators and early adopters are playing with it and figuring it out before it goes mass, or it feels like a lot of AI recently has gone mass before it's figured it out. I will say when it comes to mental health and wellness, for my avatars and virtual beings class, I asked my students to do a pro-social virtual being as their final project, and about half of them, if not more, wanted mental health and wellness. If that was their sort of like pro-social idea, it was like another one. And so I was like, okay, there were also all like a third of them wanted non-binary. So it was like non-binary for like a third, and easily half wanted mental health and wellness, AI, virtual being to help them get through life. So even though There should be rules and regulations. There's going to be so much data and information about each and every one of us when it comes to Metaverse that we have to be able to control and monitor. I would say that if you think of what you would want individually, like if some technology invaded, which I just like invaded your personal space and personal data, you go, would I want that? What kind of information would I want? What kind of information would I want of my family members or my friends? And use that as sort of like at least an initial gauge, not what is possible to gather, because you're probably for a little while going to be able to gather like most anything and then get in trouble later. Yeah, so to circle back, it's basically we're figuring it out. That's the short answer.
Last question. We have to.
So a lot of technology that's big today has a two-way relationship with its user base. They consume it, they contribute back to it in some fashion, and otherwise it doesn't go anywhere. And so I think people nailed it saying most people are lazy. And I don't mean it in a terrible way. I also think most industry, honestly, are lazy about what is possible. So getting away from the futurism and the hype and like I've set up my own AI, but I think not everyone's gonna set up their own AIs. What is that lazy entry point that every industry is gonna begin trying to set up for their clients and for their contributors, that we're gonna see really beachhead these technologies in the next, let's say, 18 months?
I have opinions, but
basically two words, inferred intimacy. That's what I think.
I mean, some of it is we're already seeing a lot with text and being able to not necessarily have to write everything that you want to write, even if it's just predicting the end of your sentence. We've seen that for a while. A lot of imagery we're figuring out. Video is coming next. Then scanning of ourselves. Then I think that what Courtney was saying, I mean, that's in my certified future of like personalized AI. I think all of that is sort of on its way. It's all on that Gartner hype cycle in some way, shape, or form. What I'm sort of excited about is getting to the point of what are the guardrails? Like, where do we hit a point of saying, actually, it doesn't do that? Right now, we're still in it. It does everything for everyone all the time under all circumstances. I'm excited for, you can use it for this use case and this use case and this situation and that situation. And we're starting, I'm seeing hints of that for sure.
Just on thought on regulations, you'll regulate to protect consumers because there's a lot of demand for that. But these are extremely valuable war technologies, and besides what you talked about a little bit, the other thing that drives a lot of technologies is their use for warfare. So there will be regulations, but they'll all go out the window when there was something going on somewhere with Russia or China or something like that. So I think you just have to know that there's still a lot of really crazy possibilities that, we already have Palantir that does that probably without AI, right? You already have Google in bed with the government, doing I don't know what, if you go into what people do. So I think there's a lot there that's going to get more difficult, not just for consumers, but as citizens. I think we have to start thinking about that. But yeah, it is a big thing. Future of search, I think, is my prediction. I think, it's very antiquated how Google works, but future of search, even for companies and their own data, and to be able to kind of meaningfully use that data set to kind of have it come to life, whether that's an archive, whether that's a different way of analyzing the data and using AI for that, or making it more meaningful and accessible. So I would look at, to me, that's where AI feels most interesting, is that it can help you kind of make connections either yourself or just overwhelming data. I now prefer to use ChatGPT to Google search because I know it's a little less adulterated because there aren't the sponsored things and everything for now, and it gives me something that is more meaningful. So I think those are the ways I think it's going to be really interesting enterprise in the next 18 months. Okay, thank you.
Thanks so much. Thanks everyone. That's a round of applause for all our amazing panelists. Samantha, Alex, Courtney, John, thanks so much for being here. Thanks Gabo for being our guiding light and treasury. You're navigating us in some amazing directions and great to see some of your work as well. Amazing stuff. Just love this. Thanks so much. Thanks everyone. We're now gonna go into into a 5-minute break first, right? We're running a little late, but we'll still take those 5 minutes. We're gonna come back to 2 amazing sessions. The first one, where I will come in and talk a little bit about eventually what we do, going to bring up the screen and have a virtual stand under our screen. And we're going to build a virtual. For those of you, I think we're running a little late. I would have loved for this to be a session where we all kind of try to build our own virtual ourselves really quickly and follow along because it's that easy. But we won't be able to do that today, so you're going to be able to look at this video later and figure out how to do that. Followed by that, we've got Penelope, Damon, Gabo, and Kavya coming in a session moderated by Ayushi, where we're going to talk about the use of these technologies for good, right? So it's not about having these technologies I think they're playing an amazing role already with 3 amazing case studies we're going to see of how these technologies are being used for good. So with that, let's take 5 and see you back shortly. So you have a bunch of people interested in looking. Good to see you, man. Good to see you in person. Adam actually told me that this was happening. Yeah, we just wanted to come and see you in person.
Yes, my big question.
Hey everyone, I know we're having some amazing conversations. But I request all of you to please head back, take your seats. We've got some amazing sessions coming up. Hello everyone, just
how's everybody doing? Can we get everybody back to their seat? How's everybody doing?
hello, hello. Hey everyone, can I just have everyone back in this section here? Yes, so let's get started with a really quick presentation. We're 45 minutes away from closing this out, but before that we have an amazing panel. We're gonna hear from Penelope, who's gonna talk about some amazing, her amazing work that actually is going to Sundance. Really excited about that. I think there's just some amazing work that she's putting up. You're going to hear from Damon about scrapping wheels and what he's doing. You're going to hear from Gabo about his project Who's Metaverse. We're going to hear a panel. We're also going to have Tanya joining us back on that. But before that, this really quick interactive session, right? So more in the interest of time than anything else, I'm going to just quickly get started. So I think you've been hearing the word geometry a lot, and now's the chance to kind of just speak a little bit about what we do. So geometry is kind of like the Canva of the metaverse, right? That's the best way to put it. It is a no-code, immersive 3D game engine that allows people to create a lot of the experiences that you saw earlier, right? It allows literally anybody. You don't need to know how to code. All you need is a rock-solid idea. You want to know what you want to build, and that's going to, and we're going to kind of allow you to bring that to reality. And today we're going to also talk about AI, which is a very important part of our offering now. We're actually launching that feature, and I'd love to demo it live to all of you. Now, geometry has historically been used for 3 use cases. By the way, we're standing inside a virtual world. This is a virtual me that I use sometimes. It's something that's running on a browser. It works on a headset, mobile phone, laptop, desktop. It's a 3D virtual world. You guys can enter it, and we'll be able to see each other, hear each other as well. But what happens within these worlds is, these are some of our clients. So PayPal uses geometry for onboarding their employees, for telling them about what PayPal does, as does Accenture, Amazon. We work with some of the largest banks. These are just some of our clients, not all of them. We also build digital twin metaverses. I mean, geometry has been used, for example, for the COVID vaccine manufacturing, where Sanofi had a lot of their virtual, a lot of their factories and setups during the pandemic actually ported onto geometry. And people, because it's seasonal workers manufacturing the vaccines, would be able to understand how to put these together in record time. We work with Walmart, so Walmart, Sam's Club, they have a really complex set of things that will go on inside the store. And for somebody who's new to Walmart, to understand all of these, geometry is the platform on which a lot of these things happen. Geometry is also integrated with e-commerce, so we're integrated with Shopify WooCommerce. We've had $500 million worth of stuff that stuff you get delivered in the real world gets shopped via geometry. So tons of experiences over there. What we give you is really straightforward. We give you the creation tools, so anybody can learn how to build these experiences in minutes and not months. So it's a no-code engine. Anybody in this room can learn how to do this. We give you one-click publishing and deployment. So as soon as you're done building your experience, you don't have to worry about hosting, analytics, about how you're going to actually bring this to people. Headset, mobile, desktop, we have you covered and directly on the browser. And we give you rock-solid analytics. So you will be able to track how people are performing within this. You can auto-generate leaderboards. Earlier we had Sid talking about how the data will automatically go into your learning systems. So your company's data all stays in one place while we put into geometries. Got some amazing enterprise tools as well. And I want to just show you glimpses. I'm happy to cut this talk short just because we don't have a lot of time. I'm just going to show you a few glimpses into some of the experiences that have been built with geometry. And I hope these are visible. Let me get a better view of these. I hope that's good. But this, for example, is a virtual spaceship that Accenture uses to onboard their employees. And you would be able to come in, walk inside the space, find a buddy, play games that allow you to understand the company better. You have these collectibles, virtual collectibles that allow you to enter different rooms, meet the leaders virtually. We have some amazing experiences I was hoping I could showcase. But again, these visuals I think do help get the point across. We've got these rooms with case studies. And you would be able to click them, a lot of gamified content. We're going to build some of that shortly. What you see here is our work with some of our manufacturing clients where they have virtual versions of their factory or shop floors. Within this, these act as digital twins because when you click on any of these machines, you would be able to see real-time data that's streaming in from these machines. Now, setting up a digital twin like this would sound like something that takes months, weeks, years, I don't know. But on geometry, it's a day's task, right? So in one day, you can actually just, I'm assuming the 3D model exists, you can drop in the 3D model, link up your data, and have that entire thing up and running. I think so 30 to 40% of the clients we work with already have 3D models. It's an investment, thankfully, a lot of people are starting to make it. But if you need the 3D models done, by the way, you also have the geometry marketplace, where we've got people across the globe who can come in, scan, build a 3D model for you. We work with a lot of partners within this arena. And again, we've got partners pretty much across the globe who could help you achieve a lot of these allied tasks as well. Once you're into this, we also believe in often having the metaverse often struggles with this realism question. I think a lot of us ask, how real can it get, And of course, we've got a lot of people like Alex pushing the limit over there, creating some really good stuff. But also we help merge reality, using photography, right? 3D and 360, so geometry can also take in, apart from 3D data, 360 images and videos that you could lay on top of it. This is just a process training where after clicking on a machine or a room, you actually jump into this. This is the pavilion. This is PayPal's virtual world that you can enter. It's got multiple floors, which you can access via the elevator. Each floor has a different purpose. So as an employee, a different part of your employee journey would be associated with each and every one of these floors. So you would be able to come in and work with that. It's a dynamic experience, which means it knows who you are, and it can change the data that is in the space accordingly. Now, these are just some experiences built on it. So how do I put it? If VR PowerPoint, these are some of the slides that people have built using this, right? Just to be clear, we don't build this ourselves. We work with a lot of partners or enterprises themselves use geometry to build the content you've seen. What we do is we provide them this portal that is so ridiculously simple that they can start creating this. It really speeds up the process if you are within the space. So if you're using Unity or Unreal, for most use cases you can use geometry, most, not all, but most use cases, geometry will be able to cut down your time to deployment to 10%. And that's really powerful because rapid prototyping is something that the metaverse needs right now. And that's what we bring to the table. Instead of taking you through a video, I think what I want to do today is actually build something with you guys, right? And instead of using a template, now we've got tons of templates that you can start with, I'm actually going to create a blank room, right? So we're going to call this the 48th floor, right? And I'm just adding this, creating this experience. There's a dashboard. Geometry is browser-based. You don't need to install or download anything at all. You can just get started, and I'm going to jump into this virtual world. You're going to see it's doing some science right now. So as soon as you're done with that, you should see a workspace just pop up. And right now, it's just this room that it's the basic template we have, the one where I have the geometry slides put up earlier as well. So, but you can actually switch this out with any model you want, right? So you can upload any 3D model, and we have Sketchfab integrated, which means you have access to over 1.5 million models that are already there and available. You can connect your accounts, any models you purchase will also show up, and you can double click on that, search, and find it. But of course, again, time is short, and we have another panel coming up. I'm going to just work with what I have right now. You click this plus button right here to add what we call a geometry elements, images, videos, text, emojis, 3D models, quizzes, scoring, timers. Do you remember Sid, who had created that virtual room earlier? Sid works within the pre-sales, sales, and demo engineering division at SuccessFactors. But he was able to leverage this to create the experience that he was showcasing. So what he had on the screen was something he and his team built themselves without having that expertise. And these are the components that help you put this together, right? So of course you can do like a ton of things within this. I mean, I don't want to again take a lot of time. I'm just going to drop a video. You could align a video against the wall. I have a lot of videos on the wall, but also some videos have superpowers. So I'm going to actually, add in a video that's been shot against a green screen. Not so relevant to today, but just something. Oh, yes. Yeah, I think that's all. So I'm just going to use a video that I already have, and I'm going to drop that in. So there's the lady over there, so we just dropped in a video element, and with one click, we can get rid of that green screen view. So there she is within that space. We're going to just position her so she's right size and on the floor. I can scale her up. Now do remember, a video is 2-dimensional, right? So she's actually still 2-dimensional, but you just turn the face camera setting on to Y, and wherever you go, she's going to be looking at you, which is kind of creepy. What we need right now at the moment. We're going to be able to now add something to program this. So we're going to add, there's tons of stuff you can do. I'm going to add an emoji, right? And I'm going to kind of position this near where she is. So I'm just bringing this up, and I'm doing this all with one hand. I think that, yeah, but you're going to come in, and I'm going to use a chat emoji, scale that down a bit, just to make it clear that it's something that's clickable. I'm going to add a nice bounce animation to it. I'm going to have it face the camera as well, so it follows me around. And what do I want? I want that when somebody clicks the video, I want the video to play. That's what you say. The geometry set up with an interactivity system, that's sentence-based. You make sentences. Kids are really good at this. You can actually, sorry about that. I hope it comes up shortly. This trick has worked in the past. Yes. So rules are really straightforward. So what I want to say is, whenever that emoji, there's that image is clicked, I want the video to play. And that's it, you're done. This works in a headset, mobile phone, laptop, everywhere you want. You click on the deploy button right here, and you say new deployment. Whenever you do, we give you everything you need. You get the link, that's a QR code anybody over you can scan. I'm going to make this a little better. We give you an embed code, you can put it inside any website, app, anywhere you need. We're going to give you the HTML, we're going to give you the SCORM file. If you want to dump it into an LMS, we're going to allow you to get the HTML, we're going to allow you to have multiplayer mode, so many people can come in, you can have your avatars, audio, chat, video, everything, just with checkboxes here. It's built out of the box and something that you'll be able to use very, very easily, right? So that's the part of geometry right there. Now what we're going to do is, we're going to now talk about AI. Because what we're talking about, I think all of you are already able to extrapolate what this means for the metaverse. But now it's time to talk about AI. So we had Sam come in earlier. Now we're going to, instead of having that lady, by the way, I think before I do that, I'm going to take a short detour. Sam, we're going to get right back to you. I'm going to preview this experience, right? Now when you preview this, this is something that I've built, of course, with one hand in under a minute. So it's not going to be the best, but what you will see over here as it loads up is me in this virtual world with that girl who was over there. I'm going to walk up to her, I click that.
Hello, welcome to the Arty Society.
Right, so that's something that's working, it just, on a browser and device. But I might want better user experience, right? So you can actually just, rules are simple. So whenever the emoji is clicked, the video should play, but also the emoji should disappear, right? Because you're not really talking. And we want another rule. That rule says, hey, whenever the video ends, right? So that's when she's done talking. Maybe I want to talk to her again. So I say the emoji should appear. That's it, you're done. Better UX. It's just like that, right? Now we're going to do another thing. We're going to add, I don't have time, of course, to do all the elements. They're amazing. And so much stuff you can do with them. I could add a view to the, from the 48th floor. I had a panorama waiting, but I don't think I have time for that. But I'm going to add a virtual Sam to this, right? And instead of just being a video of her, it's actually going to be an intelligent Samantha Wolf that we're going to have inside this virtual space. So we're going to add the character element, which is an NPC, right? So this just adds in a default, and you can just position this guy wherever you want. But I want this to look like Samantha. Now, of course, you can use Ready Player Me to generate a new character right away. So clicking that will pop up the Ready Player Me interface. But I don't want to do that right now, so I'm not going to be able to scale that. So I'm just hitting a refresh. And I'm going to use the avatar I already created with Samantha, because that's going to take 10 minutes and time I don't have right now. So I'm just going to refresh this. And you're already going to be seeing the character that I added here, right? So I'm going to take this, and we already created an avatar that Sam approves of. And that's the one right here. So that's, we just changed it with an avatar. Anybody can generate, you can use Ready Player Me's engine. And I just checked the box that says use AI brain. I can give it a voice, by the way. So, I can say, hey, she's going to be speaking in English. There are tons of options. I'm just choosing the defaults right now, not enough time. The trigger radius is how far away do I have to be with her to be able to converse with her. So I'm saying that's 2 meters. And the welcome dialog can be, hey, this is Sam. Ask me anything about the metaverse, right? Sorry, typing with one hand again. So you have this, and you can actually just bring this up right here, and it's done. And now we need to build what we call a geometry of brain, right? So the character exists, we need to give the character a brain. Now you can create a lot of brains, right? Basically, these are just dumps of information that we want to put in. So you can use any of this. So I actually drop in some PDFs that and a couple of URLs from her website. So I basically put in her website. I went to her LinkedIn and I downloaded that PDF. So I dropped in a few of these into that. So basically, it's trying to kind of understand. And I can obviously give it a voice, or I can say, I can basically bring it alive now. I can say, you are Sam. Right? So respond to any questions briefly, right? Because you don't want to go on and on. And you are intelligent, inspiring, and witty. So we can give it these characteristics that would program that. And we can save this. Again, you can add text, PDFs, URLs, videos, it would read everything, right? And then I can train this. So this is Sam 2, the brain we were working with earlier. And I can just go back and basically go, where did we go? Yeah. So I'm going to exile this and actually use the brain that I just created called Sam 2. And we're ready, guys. That's it. So we have a virtual Sam ready for us to interact with within the same space. And all we need to do is go to the deployment we were talking about. You could all go into collaborative experience as well, by the way. But you can just hit go on this. I'm just going to demo this, but I'm going to bring up the QR so you can all do this on your mobile phones as well. But you can come into this and you get a virtual Sam. Now, it's pretty similar to the experience before, except for the fact that you should see one extra person in there, right there, right? So we're going to walk up to her.
Hey, this is Sam. Ask me anything about the metaverse.
Right? And does anyone have a question for Sam? What is the metaverse? What is the metaverse? What is the metaverse? Oh no, that's I'm gonna type, my accent's not the best for this thing. Wait, we're gonna refresh, this sucks. No, sorry. Yeah, no, I think I need to type that in. My accent's not the best. Does somebody else want to ask that? Okay. I'm still gonna type. But yes, you can come in and.
Hey, this is Sam. Ask me anything about the metaverse.
It thinks we're using an OpenAI backend, by the way, just so you all know.
The metaverse is a next generation of computing that is powered by technology building blocks and has the potential to impact every part of an organization.
There you go. So it's reading from the information that it got through all the prompts that I gave it, and you would have used that somewhere in the description, or it's maybe, framing that together from all the things it knows about you. But it's that quick to create a virtual world with a virtual you inside it. If you guys want to try it, here's the QR code. It works on a mobile phone. You just scan that and try this out. I'm going to have that up. Let me know when you want to scan that. But we're 30 minutes out, so I'm gonna, I'm gonna just actually end with this. I'm glad I had the chance to present geometry really quickly. I didn't, of course, have the chance to go through all of the amazing projects that have been built using this. Over 15,000 experiences have been built on geometry. We've trained over 3 million employees, directly or indirectly. They've used geometry. So there's a ton of stuff I would love to take you guys through. But at the same time, I would, we're out of time. And let's do this some other time. But I hope you guys got this on your phone to try it out. And I'm going to bring up my LinkedIn over here. So if anybody wants to connect, that's the best way to kind of reach out. I'm going to have Chrome do this QR thing. Does it still do it? It does. So I don't know if that's good enough, but if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, just get that QR. We'd love to connect. We'd love to speak more. Thanks so much. And now that I actually am also introducing the experiments of Gabo, if I can. Wait, we're going with Penelope first. Yes. Penelope, is going to come in and talk about some of the amazing work that she's doing. She's been an inspiration. We've been working together for two years now? Three years. I mean, it's been an amazing journey. And I'm gonna, bring it.
Yeah, I'll be super quick. Obviously, we are social on time. And I'll just tell you a little bit about myself and my project, and then we'll load up the space that you've actually built. So I refer to myself as a cinematic artist. I started my career at the BBC in London, first as a traditional filmmaker, and then not that long after, they asked me to start directing interactive work for them. So it was a really interesting experiment in learning to tell stories across both traditional media, but also having the opportunity to look at emerging technology as a tool to facilitate that storytelling. And what happened as a result was that they sort of merged together. And so every time I had a story, I would think about it both traditionally, but I would also think about what technology could best serve that. And certain platforms and genres serve certain types of creativity better than others. And so it was just a really interesting time-space continuum to sort of land in, because of course all of this technology was coming together. And so not so long ago, I'm sort of really fast forwarding through all of this, but I, as part of my research fellowship at MIT in the Open Documentary Lab, and also as Sundance's artist in residence at Johns Hopkins, which is where I was working with Gabo, I started working on a project that was a long time coming. It was really spurred by the events of George Floyd's death, and it's called The Chemistry of Racism. And it's a triptych, so it's 3 parts, and it uses his death, the last 8 minutes of his life, as a jumping off point to connect the dots between color, COVID, chemical toxicity, and the criminal justice system. And so, because it's a triptych and there are 3 parts there, one part is traditional and the other parts are non-traditional emerging technology storytelling usages. And so it starts off with a virtual reality experience, and I see that as a sort of those Russian dolls where you open one up and then you pull out another one, and then you open up another one and you pull it out. And so the first part looks at George Floyd's life through those last 8 minutes as a VR experience. And then the second part is a piece of emerging technology storytelling that I invented as part of this research fellowship at MIT. And then the third bit is a traditional cinematic documentary. And so a project like this at this level, and as a sort of side note, as an environmentalist, I've done a lot of environmental advocacy, both in Europe and here in the US. So I've had meetings with Bernie Sanders, Senator Chuck Schumer, who is for anyone who may not know, the head of the leader of the Senate here in the United States, and a lot of conversation about that. So a lot of this work is not just for storytelling purposes, but it's also a piece of advocacy. And so there are very few places where a project like this could premiere. And so I had to narrow it. Well, it wasn't very difficult, because it's really only Sundance or Venice in terms of like film festivals before it goes out into the wider world. And so I really needed to create an environment that they could begin to have a sense of what I had in my own mind as I'm building it, and they could take that walk with me as they consider the project. And so if we could just launch, this was built, we started building this last year, and this is just the first iteration of it. Unfortunately, most of the project is under a non-disclosure agreement, so I can't speak too much to it, but I can show you the space that we built. And so when you get launched into the room, depending on where you stand, this becomes George Floyd's face, but because it's 3-dimensional and immersive, you don't get that unless you actually walk around the environment. There I am, a version of me, the pen bot we've been calling it. I always say not as cool as Bridgie Smalls, as you're about to see, but me nonetheless. And you then have the opportunity, so Sundance would basically come to this. I would sort of talk to them a little bit about exactly where I'm at. One part of the room, if we could just swivel, yeah, so we can go. So there's a little bit, like if Sundance was to send us on, I have a big relationship with Sundance, so in addition to being their artist in residence, I'm a fellow. They've also supported this project with a grant for journalism and emerging technology. And so, and also because they're US based, it felt like a really good match. But they know about me, other people may not. And so if we could swing to the other way, left, to my left, this way, back a bit. And so like every time, back a bit, other way. Right, stay there, move forward. And so this is one of the great things about being in this space where you feel like you're literally in this room, and these are some of my institutional partners that I'm working with. And so the thing about a space like this, which is so great, is that yes, it's great for demonstrative purposes, but also you come to a Sundance or any kind of event, and you have the opportunity as a remote visitor, as a remote attendee, to have that emerging technology experience, which traditionally you would only have if you were actually at the event itself. And so I think on the final wall we have a video where all of my partners, so for example, you'll be able to find out a little bit more about where we're at. I won't go through the whole thing, but this is Aurelian from Platige. Platige is probably best known for being the showrunners of the Netflix series The Witcher, which is their biggest ever investment of their own IP, their own intellectual property. Ian Helm's is the new one, Henry Cavill's the old Witcher, but basically everyone involved in this whole project, which is massive and global, we get to present here, and so every time we get an update to the project, Sundance will be able, and whoever else I'm working with will be able to see where we're at any given time. We're now working on developing a brain for this, so eventually when this is released, you'll be able to go through, it has thousands of hours of interviews with scientists from all over the world, particularly to do with environmental health. And I think a really important consideration with AI that we haven't actually discussed yet is the power of curation. So I don't use AI to create, I use it to curate my work. And curation is really important because if AI can basically scrape anything and is using social media, then false news becomes a whole issue that you have to navigate. And if you don't know any better, it's very hard to understand, where's this material coming from. And so I can make sure that the brain is only sourcing from, for example, if we're using medical journals, it would only source from the Lancet and New England Journal of Medicine, for example, and will not source someone's Facebook post as an authority, which, all kinds of crazy things can happen in this world. And so these are things that I'm thinking about in terms of how people access not just my work, but all of the research that I've done and continue to do that has led me to this place to create whatever particular piece of work that we're talking about. So that was very, very quick. Like sped through that. But I hope that makes sense. And if you have any questions, of course, I'm here.
Actually,
that's my phone, so I would be under 10 minutes, but I think I will.
We're going to be right back for the panel. Next up, we have Gabo. I would, again, welcoming him back to the stage. Hey, Gabo is going to talk about who's better.
Yeah.
You want to just
keep speaking. I do have to leave. I wanted to talk about a new project that is really cool. called Who's Metaverse? And it is a project that brings Metaverse creator tools to underserved areas. We were honored by the Webbies as a kind of Verizon 5G for change sort of way of using 5G, but using technology for good. And in a nutshell, just go through it. You can all go to whosmetaverse.org. And really, it's about trying to diversify the creator class of people working with these new technologies. A lot of the problems with the internet is really a result of this lack of diversity. And so the idea is, let's get ahead of it. And so there's just a short video that I think, let me see if I can start at the beginning. So, it really tries to answer.
It looks like a shipping container right here, but it's so much.
It's meant to really answer these kind of four questions of who gets to create in the metaverse, who builds the tool, who builds the future, whose metaverse will it be. And what's great about it is there's a physical component where we're repurposing shipping containers. We're also working to bring a lot of this hardware into a lot of community centers. But there is also a platform that we're building that's like an ed tech platform that really takes a lot of the curriculum that I helped build at Johns Hopkins, where Penelope was our first Sundance Artist in Residence, so we go back. And at Johns Hopkins, I was able to start the first MA program in the country dedicated to immersive storytelling and emerging technologies. And you'll see a lot of that curriculum, but that curriculum is about learning AI, learning virtual reality, augmented reality, scanning, all of the things that are emerging technology for storytelling. We've kind of put into a geometry-like platform so that the curriculum is spatial, that the learning is spatial. And a lot of that came from when the pandemic happened and I was forced to go online, and I realized that what I was using was things like Blackboard or Canvas that are very 2D types of tools for online learning. And so we thought, what could we build that would take advantage of the medium? Like, how could you learn about these metaverse tools not in the metaverse? What if we built the curriculum there? So we built something called Light School, which you all can access and see where we are with the curriculum. But I'll give you a little bit of a sneak peek as well. And we're right now, I'm happy to say, we're live in Harlem at the Boys and Girls Club on 145th Street. And in a couple of weeks, we're launching in Menlo Park, California. And by September, we'll be running in 3 locations in North America: Seattle, the Bay Area, and New York. And really the idea is to, again, give these sort of curriculum and allow young people to have access to a lot of these things. So this is a little bit what we built in geometry, Ready Player Me, and I'm going to say a little bit about how AI will work with some of this. But really beautifully built world, and a lot of the students will then build their own worlds as well. We have challenges, hackathons, everything. So this is a little bit, again, about the curriculum. We learn game design, of course, things around the metaverse, but we also have things around future thinking. We also have things around digital mindfulness. And we're also looking to kind of collaborate with our young people to see what they want as we go forward. So all of this is in Light School, the platform here, which I'll just show you. You can sign up for updates, you can be in touch, and really, it is a super team of people that are behind this, because I've been very fortunate in my life and career to work with some of the best. We're also partnering with Games for Change. We also have a good significant amount of funding from Meta and other tech companies. We have other partners like Chris Milk, who's a visionary immersive artist who did Supernatural, Edward Sachi, who does Fable, who does a lot of things with virtual beings. So really the best of people coming together to teach and to collaborate and work on this platform. So it is for underserved areas, but really what we're building will be applicable to everyone. We already have a lot of interest from NYU, University of Maryland, and Arizona State University who want to start integrating Light School into their curriculum. So you just come in, you can sign in, and
get the first one.
Yeah, and it's just it's a regular way of working in what you're familiar with, and once you go in here, you'll be able to do this process. I won't take up too much of your time, but I encourage you to go to losmetaverse.org. How we will integrate AI is a little bit similar to what Litsev was saying, is that for each of the courses, we do have these amazing faculty. So we will create kind of AI versions of a lot of this faculty so that when they're not teaching live on the platform or not able to be there with the students, students can ask questions based on their expertise matter. So every single room or every single area will always have this 24/7 ability for someone to have the ability to ask questions and to have that virtual being kind of give them the answers that they need. So let's see if this works quickly, but if not, you can do it. 10 seconds, okay. Putting your platform on the spot. But I do want to say, really, Utsav is very understated, as is his team. I have very high standards when it comes to what I would use to build a platform on. And I picked Utsav because it is the best. I'm not just saying that, right? But what's even better is Utsav's sort of ability to work with partners for new kind of use cases that we want. And I've been working with Utsav since we've been using it at Johns Hopkins. And I'm like, I don't like this, I want this, you need to do this. And he listens. And really a lot of the roadmap has become really adapting to what we could do, and we've been just thrilled. So I really urge you all to use geometry and see what it can do for what your business does or anything. So, this is a little bit of Light School.
My name is Sabrina, and I am so excited to welcome you to Light School, the immersive learning platform where you can learn all about the metaverse and start creating for it. I'm thrilled that you've decided to join us on this journey, and I can't wait to see what amazing things you'll create here. At Light School, we are all about learning, collaborating, and having fun along the way. We believe that the metaverse is an incredible space for creativity.
So, sorry to cut that off. These are a little bit of the different courses we have right now. So you can kind of go into them yourselves and learn about them, take them. But let's go into, really quickly, game design. And we've been working with a lot of designers that Utsav has also recommended to help us think okay, if you're teaching this, what do you do in the platform? This one's really cool because it's about game design, but depending on whether you want to do things around Twine, Minecraft, or Unity, you go down different sort of pathways. And as you can see, there's different sort of instructors that are waiting for you in those areas. So it's a bit of a maze, and then you go through, and it's a really fun thing to do. So I'll just stop here, but really, please check it out, please be in touch, and you can learn about these things through a lot of the knowledge we've been building over the past 5 years and trying to understand how to teach this stuff. So now we're bringing it out to other people. If you want to partner in any way, if you want to know more about it, we'll keep you updated. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Gabo, for your kind words and also the constant inspiration, right? I mean, when we say we like working with partners, it's because that is what drives the platform forward, right? We're listening, we want to know what everyone wants so that we can actually bake it into the platform, make it easy for everyone to build out. And the reason geometry has become so easy, so user-friendly, yet powerful is because of all of these amazing insights that you bring to us, Gabo, and we try and kind of break through and see how it can fit into the platform. And it's just rapid prototyping, multiple iterations of this that has gotten us where we are today. So thank you so much once again for bringing this forward. I want to now have Damon Damon is going to talk about sort of the, some really important things. He's going to talk about food waste. He's spoken at the UN about this. He's super inspiring. We're putting together a bunch of cool projects together with Damon very shortly as well that I know you'd love to talk about. So I'm going to leave it to you.
Thank you very much. Actually, do you have the video I want to start with? I'm going to start with a 2-minute video. I won't be too quick. There's food, right? We ate all. It was really good, the sandwiches. Thank you for doing
Good morning to you, Damon.
How's it going? Happy birthday.
Hey, thank you very much. So what is Scrappy Meals? And I think this is more for just adults as well, because I'm a picky eater.
Scrappy Meals is a creative food agency focused on getting people to look at food in a different way.
It's not even about really the culinary side to it. It's being able to provide educational content and a different way of people accessing this information.
This basically says it has AI, Metaverse.
Not only food education, but education in general, and how connecting like an extended reality to learning is gonna accelerate that growth and how much knowledge we can get, and by using food as like a case study for that.
Thank you, everybody. So basically, let's get the, and then I got the little PDF. That helps. So my name is Damon Versace. I founded Scrappy Meals XR about 7 years ago. And when I started 7 years ago, it was a sustainable catering company. And I don't know if you saw the little video, back in 2020, I became a published children's book author, and I created Scraps Food Guide from A to Z. This is Scraps right here. Scraps is a food scavenger extraordinaire. So the whole idea that I really did back then was to try to create some playful conversations around food. And literally time that with the pandemic. And it kind of canceled a lot of stuff, but then on the flight back, I was like, you know what? I do not want to stop this. I want to continue forward. So on the flight back, I came up with the Scraps in the Back Food Wrap Almanac, right? And the character in that is Friggy Smalls, who, thank you, Pamela, for mentioning Friggy Smalls. Friggy Smalls is basically, well, actually, before I get to Friggy Smalls, actually, I haven't jumped over real quick. Before I'll introduce Friggy Smalls, because that's what this is all about. It's all about introducing Friggy Smalls. But before I do that, I just want to put a question out there, ask a question. Really, it's up here. How many people play with food? Not many people. I think there needs to be a lot more people that play with food. And the reason being is that, also too, let me get up. Why is it important that we play with food? And there's a reason. And it's a playful exploration, it's learning, it's giving people the ability to explore and be culinary curious, right? And the reason we're doing this is because right now, especially in the United States, we look at cooking like as a chore. It's more of a task. It's not something that's fun. It's not something that people, really, it's actually kind of worrisome if you really think about it. So, for me, it's all about this value of food that needs to be applied first. This is nothing about tech. It's all about making food this superpower, which it is. It has a superpower. And cooking is like being a magician. We have all these skills that we just kind of neglect. So really, a lot of it, first and foremost, is about developing and bringing to the forefront playful food exploration. Next, you really have, with all this, the benefits of, basically what Friggy Smalls is going to be, or it's in development, it's in the works. This AI food guide, and it's not too complicated. It's trying to represent your fridge, what's in your fridge, help you know what's in your fridge, because if we all go out shopping, how many people go produce shopping, grocery shopping, and they don't remember what's in their fridge? It's like, do I have something back home that is in my hand right now? And this is, a benefit for this is to alleviate that problem, help you better understand what you have in your fridge, make shopping kind of more immersive, make this whole process a little more fun, right? I'm all about making cooking fun, playful. So besides the benefits of also learning what's in your fridge, maintaining that stock and inventory that you got, saving money, eating better, right? There's a ton of benefits that come with this. Now, what are these benefits from a tech standpoint? And specifically, what, AI, Metaverse, blockchain, NFTs, blah, blah, blah. You insert catchphrase right here that's gonna be, the media, I think I was said it before, the media is making shit up, to be honest. I know that because I worked in it. And a lot of what going forward with AI and the Metaverse and all this tech for next gen, in my opinion, especially applied to food, it's kind of like a recipe. You're bringing all these elements together, you're creating a dish, and you're presenting it to your customer, to your client, basically to whoever you want to be a part of this. And the possibilities with food and culinary education from a tech standpoint, giving people the ability to, in real time, develop recipes that they wouldn't normally develop, give people the ability to use artificial intelligence to help them with nutritional questions. It really isn't about, when it comes to food, being vegan or being a carnivore. It's about really finding your own food persona and using these technologies, using the metaverse around that to really help people going forward develop that. And last but not least, I don't want to take too much time. I showed a little video. If you got any more, Yannick wants me to put up the website in a few minutes. But a lot of this really too, what I wanted to talk about. I'm talking about a lot of tech people. You know the tech. I don't want to be redundant. AI, metaverse, you know that stuff. But a lot of this more is, it's outside of the technology. It's using the technology to give us the ability to learn about food, to give us the ability to be more playful when it comes to cooking, and to really use this tech as a preventative way. I'm going to wrap up a little real quick, but the main thing I'm really trying to do is, especially with Scrappy Meals, is to gamify culinary experiences as a new age climate solution. Now, what the hell does that mean? And what it means is, I did a couple of things at the UN, and everyone talks about food waste, right? I think that's a horrible thing to talk about. Food waste in itself, visually, do not go together. We should not be talking about a term like that. We should be talking about food appreciation. We got to be talking about the positive sides to this, right? And I also saw that a lot of these conversations were happening after the fact. Well, we have excess, we have waste, we have garbage. Well, with the advent of all this tech, real-time ray tracing is also a big thing. Real-time global illumination, the ability to have these metaverse spaces running as fast and as smooth as they can is because computer graphics cards are just so powerful beyond anything we've ever done, in my opinion. And now we can take this technology, apply it before the problems happen, educate kids, build confidence before they get into the kitchen. So when you are learning about cooking something, you are learning how to make a sandwich, make pasta, you have the confidence that is instilled in you from the immersive experience. And you can retain that, pull from that so much more easily. So with that being said, one more thing to wrap up. Oh, I gotta show my website real quick. How do I get to the website? And if people want to follow Scrappy Meals, you go to scrappymeals.com. And also if you go on Instagram, Scrappy Meals, you can follow Fuji Smalls. I kind of have the first beginning of the page is just kind of do some Instagram posts. But you get like the gist of what the program is. It's all about kind of educating and and also too, last but not least, like this is more than just food. It's to me, I kind of just want to prove to people like I feel passionate about this stuff. And 3 years ago, I was over in Sweden getting text messages telling me to come home, everything's canceled, everything's over. And I was like, I'm just starting. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, to not give up on something too, to not give up on your projects. We have so many amazing, brilliant people here that have been working so hard on their stuff for so long, and I think there's another added thing to keep in mind is like to keep going on your stuff and to keep working on it. So thank you so much for the opportunity to chat. And yeah.
Thanks so much for the knowledge inspiration. Love the project, love the work you're doing, and part of you. I mean, this is an amazing project, and I'm sure there's a lot more to come. We're working together on that. We're slightly over time, but it's our last panel. And for that, I'd like to introduce Ayushi. Ayushi Mishra is, she's a Forbes 30 Under 30 awardee. I'm also married to her. But she's going to come in and talk. She runs a company of her own. I'm going to leave the introduction to you. But she's going to be moderating a panel with, I think, so I have down here Damon and Penelope.
Hello everyone. Just for context, I'm of course invested in geometry, like indirectly, but and also free labor. Having said that, I'm here primarily because throughout my career, I'm a serial entrepreneur. My first startup was within Hopkins, so it was a combination of AI, for scaling peer support and therapy. It's funded by NIH. And then I moved to India. I've been working with drones for decision support systems, largely in sustainable governance use cases. Long story short, I'm invested in using emerging technology for impact. And what I'm curious about today from our panelists here is how you've been using Metaverse. And what I'm going to do is also hog the mic a little bit because I have questions of my own. So I'm going to structure it a bit. I'll ask 3 questions per panelist, and then I'll open the floor to the audience. Thank you so much. Kamini, hi.
Yes.
So, I wanted to ask, you have been working with SAP, with startups in the Web3 space for a while. Can you speak more about how the Metaverse AI, beyond the buzz, how it's being used by enterprises in a real world scenario, particularly to create some sort of impact or CSR?
Yeah, good question. I think the perception is Metaverse is more of a consumer-facing tool, like for gaming and others, but there are a number of use cases on the enterprise level that I've seen. So for example, I've seen it a lot in a training context. So there's a lot of pressure right now to do training on things like unconscious bias, for example. So it'll be situational training where you will be in front of somebody who you would potentially have a bias about and have those role-playing conversations. I've also seen it in terms of understanding different types of behavior. Like, for example, we have one for autism. So if you have someone who's autistic, how do you work with him or her, and what would be the nuances compared to someone that doesn't have it? Things like that.
Perfect, thank you so much.
I got one, I think this was.
So I guess everybody has heard from Penelope. Penelope, I actually have 2 questions from you. Okay. So the first part is actually something that you were mentioning earlier, which was the relationship of creativity with what's happening with AI and ChatGPT and the content creation process, particularly in the light of the writers' protest. The second question I want to ask is basically about the abstract nature of storytelling. How does it change when you move from a traditional medium to emerging tech like Metaverse? And because you've traversed both territories, tell me about it.
So I'm so glad that we can talk about this because obviously it's so topical at the minute. For those who may not know, the Writers Guild of America is currently on strike on the West Coast, and a huge part of the issues that they are navigating is the use of AI in terms of creativity. And I think it's a really important consideration, obviously. But I have a couple of thoughts very quickly, which are somewhat contentious, perhaps. And the first is that AI is a tool. There is something spectacularly beautiful about the human experience that I don't think we will ever replicate. And anyone who uses any of these artificial intelligences will say that you get to a certain point, you get a level of sophistication, but your ability to have that sort of energetic exchange you have when someone's art involved is not there, and that's because the artificial intelligence is not generating that itself. And so people ask me a lot, do I personally feel threatened? And the answer to that is not at all. But I do think if I was perhaps a white, middle-aged, college,
Pale male?
well, no, I don't want to say that, but I would say it's sort of like a liberal arts educated sort of sitcom writer. I would feel concerned because great AI needs great input. And I think it's really important to keep coming back to that because I don't think the press necessarily does the best job in disseminating an understanding that AI is just a tool. So the AI itself is not sitting and thinking about these things. Somebody somewhere has to program it. That's where we're at now. And so, if I was commissioning, I don't know, get me a sitcom about 6 20-something-year-old white people living in New York City that hang out in a coffee shop, I would have a lot of episodes of Friends to mine, right?
And it wasn't that long ago that Ari Emanuel, who was of course the head of Endeavor, was asked if he was concerned about AI, and he said no, because AI can't do what Larry David does. There are lots of episodes of Curb Your Enthusiasm and the Larry David Show. So if I was thinking of writing the next sitcom about 6 white people living in New York City, hanging out in a coffee shop, in the vein of Larry David, I would have a lot of competition. And it would be able to be executed in a far more, I don't want to say efficient, but let's say cheaper way across the board. And so I actually like to see these things as opportunities. Everything is an opportunity, even the greatest challenge. And so technology for me is an opportunity to put my own voice out into the world where there are very little inputs like mine. You know, traditionally people of color have not had access to the platforms that have been available to white creatives and white artists. And so our experiences can't be mined in that way. And so it allows people like me to be able to say things that haven't really been said before, in ways that haven't been said before. But there's the flip side of that, which means that if your experience has been replicated out into the world for a long time, there's a lot of that real world experience that can be used. And it's really important that we always talk about the importance of we are curating somebody else's input. Like plagiarism is not great. Taking other people's work is not great, and that's something that I can talk forever about, but I won't. And so, to the ephemeral nature of art, it's funny because I was thinking about this question, and I was thinking about how, as a tool, in some ways you could liken it to like going from a quill to a pen, or when a calculator came in, people didn't just stop, calculating in their minds, although we calculate differently. And I was thinking about this quill pen analogy and how, it's like if you gave a pen to Shakespeare, would he not have used it? Because, I don't know, it's new and scary and I could write a lot faster and I might get, I'm not going to get ink on my hands or whatever, I don't know, but I don't think he would have. And then I found something really interesting. There's no recording of Shakespeare's handwriting anywhere. We have no knowledge of any letter that Shakespeare has written by hand. We don't know what his handwriting looks like. And I was like, that's interesting. But my point in all of that is that to create, you have to have an idea. And if you can use the tools to bring your idea to life, to best serve your idea, then that's a wonderful thing. And I think what's amazing about tools like the geometry tool, or this suite of tools, is that it levels the playing field for people like me. But you have to have that idea first, and the power of creativity to tell stories that change our world and make it better is unparalleled. And so to have the best tools to allow you to do that is just, I think, so spectacular.
Thank you so much. Hi, David. I see you lost.
No, I was listening.
So, Damon's Fridgy Smalls has become something of a legend here. And it's catchy. Damon, I wanted to ask you, particularly having these characters and taking them to an immersive reality scenario, what do you think it changes, either anecdotally or otherwise, in terms of the stickiness of it, and how would you traverse the terrain? Had it been, let's say, made in the era of Mickey Mouse versus now, what do you think about it?
That's a great question.
They're all great questions. Personally, my background, I went to the School of Visual Arts over here in Manhattan, if anyone, and I studied character design and character development back in 1999. I graduated in 2003. So I was developing this stuff, kind of Toy Story-like stuff when it came out. And back then I just had a love for the development of characters to tell stories, right? And then I saw, I've grown up always wanting Mickey Mouse, and Walt Disney was a big inspiration to me. And I saw how powerful having a mascot essentially for something, especially when it comes to kids, was essential. So in the development of Scraps the Raccoon, Friggy Smalls, I'm also developing some other characters, pasta zombies. They're gonna be like little zombies that in their brains all different types of pastas, because I'm a pasta zombie. Anyway, but it's like making this playful narrative that is actually the most important thing. It's storytelling. Like nothing, technology will never trump storytelling. Like I don't care how good it is. If it's boring, if it doesn't inspire, if it doesn't motivate, if it doesn't move, it's why you're wasting your time there. So I look at the need and the necessity for characters that everyone could relate to different characters. Some people like Mickey Mouse, some people like Dora the Explorer, right? But it's having a selection for a younger audience, especially, that they could say something. And for me, Scraps is like for little kids to be excited about food that they normally wouldn't be. Right? So it's all about just giving people selections, and hopefully they, when I was a little kid, there's a handful of cartoon characters or whatever. Now there's too many, right? But it's for immersive storytelling, I think it's essential.
Thank you so much. And I'll just open the floor now. Audience, any questions?
I think I need to take Those are the last two questions. I'm so sorry.
Melody, do you think there's some point in the future when people like yourself will have created enough content that AI can produce the stories that would be like Larry David today? Do you think your time is to create content that liberal white men like me created 20 years ago that you're going to create, and at some future point there'll be another demographic where there is no content and they will step forward?
That's a great question, and I have to say the benchmark is great content. Larry David is Larry David because he's great. And an interesting thing about the democratization of technology is that everybody's a content creator. I mean, how many billions of users around the world on social media, but how much of it is great? Like really great. I mean, other than your friends and your mom or whoever, And so I think that I'm really interested in that topic, but I'm not, it feels somewhat cannibalistic, self-cannibalistic. I'm really interested in pushing myself forward as an artist, and I think a sort of revisionist history of my work is an interesting proposition, but it's not one for me personally. What I would say is that technology allows you to explore things in different ways, and so the piece of technology, it's not a technology per se, it's a marriage of multiple technologies to tell this particular story that I've invented at MIT. I couldn't do that without these technologies, but the idea is my own. The creativity is all of my own, and the technology merely facilitates that, and that facilitation has brought about something that is new and that is different. And so I think that is what we're going to see in the same way that we have hip-hop, and hip-hop samples what has gone before and has become its own thing. People still listen to Beethoven, they still listen to Elvis, but they still also listen to hip-hop as well. And so I think it's going to probably progress. I don't know, I think.
Now hip-hop samples itself.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks so much for that. I think the second question is very similar to the first. You ended up answering too. My last question would be for Gangi. For somebody entering the domain of trying to kind of make their mark within this space, would you have any advice for them?
To make the mark in this space? Yeah, good question. I think maybe an obvious answer is make sure you're solving a problem that needs to be solved, right? There's a book called Great Founders, and it's this idea of either having a vitamin problem or a pain problem, right? And so if you can focus on something that's actually a pain, so you're filling a gap that doesn't exist versus making something better, then I think it's easier to commercialize and also therefore get investment into.
That's very simple. Thanks so much. Well,
Thank you so much, everyone. And with this, we wrap up the event today.
Applause for the panel. Huge round of applause for the panelists. They've been amazing. And thanks so much to the audience and wonderful audience. Thank you so much for being there with us through this. I hope The sessions today were what you signed up for, and I think we've had some advice. I've had so much to learn today from so many people on the panel. I think it's been an amazing day for us. Thanks, Kanye, once again for the brilliant space and for having us over here. And thanks, David, Penelope, for your amazing thoughts always. Thank you so much. Thanks everyone. It's been an amazing day.